A few days have passed since Ash and Bugsy left Azalea Town to embark on their Pokemon journey, and for the most part things have been pretty relaxed, with the two friends making their way through Ilex Forest. Voltorb continues to roll merrily at Ash's side, while Ladybug has integrated herself into the party quite comfortably, thanks to Ash's ready supply of food. In fact, the only issue Ash has encountered thus far is finding ways to stop Ladybug from swiping food off his plate when he's not looking. Life is good, and as a pillar of light undiminished by the dappling of the forest canopy shines across Ash and Bugsy's faces, they know that their time in the forest is almost done, meaning they will soon reach their next destination, Goldenrod City. And just as they thought, within 10 minutes they're out of the forest, standing instead on Route 34, which Bugsy informs Ash should take them all the way to the city if they just keep following the road. However, Ash, for all his eagerness to reach his next gym, cannot resist his wanderlust, and so, much to Bugsy's chagrin, veers off course at the first opportunity. Following after his frenetic friend, Bugsy finds that the source of Ash's fascination is a cottage a bit off the beaten track, and admittedly being a bit curious about who could live there, enters alongside Ash and Voltorb. To the boys' surprise, the cottage's interior is painted and furnished entirely in pastel colours, and when the residents, an elderly man and woman, spot the pair, they rise to their feet, welcoming them to their daycare centre. As it turns out, the couple are Pokemon breeders, and though they are a little disappointed that neither Ash nor Bugsy are prospective customers, they still invite them to stay for lunch, saying they have a granddaughter around the boys' age, so they're always happy to help out new trainers. Ash and Bugsy gratefully accept, though before they can head into the dining room, an irritable female voice demands to know just what they think they're doing. Peering into the room, the boys spot a girl in a puffy white cap with brown ponytails poking out underneath, and blue overalls that cut off at her knees, and when she sees them, her brow furrows in a clear sign of annoyance. Sounding concerned, the elderly couple ask the girl, who they call Lyra, what's the matter, and in a petulant voice, Lyra replies that these two are new trainers like her, which makes them her rivals. What if by feeding them today, they gain the strength they need to win all 8 badges, allowing them to compete in the Silver Conference where they manage to beat her? If that were to happen, then by the transitive properties, her own grandparents would be responsible for crushing her dreams, and they wouldn't do that to her, would they? Tears then swim in the girl's eyes, causing her grandfather to gush that he would never do that, while her grandmother adds that she thinks the girl's being a bit hyperbolic, as per usual. Looking a bit awkward at the thought that he may have made a girl cry, Bugsy chimes in that she doesn't have to worry about him doing that since he's not taking the gym challenge. In fact, he's a gym leader. This news causes Lyra to turn on a dime, all teariness now gone, as she declares that in that case it's fine for him to eat with them. Looking hopeful, Ash asks what about him, but this just prompts another round of sobs and wails about Lyra's dream being crushed. Face falling at this rapid shifting between moods, Ash asks if there's anything he can do to earn himself some lunch, and after a moment's thought, Lyra states she supposes if he battles her then she could probably allow him to join them, since then she'd know all his strategies, and that'll mean she'll never lose to him. Lyra then begins to cackle like an over-the-top supervillain, but Ash doesn't care, grinning that he would have battled her anyway, since he's been itching to face someone new. A deal now struck, Ash and Lyra head out to a paddock behind the daycare center where they can begin their battle. Bugsy agrees to referee, and so the terms are set with this being a 2-on-2 battle, which suits both trainers just fine, as they only have 2 Pokemon each. At Lyra's insistence, Ash chooses first, opening with Ladybug, though the bug doesn't seem overly thrilled at being summoned so abruptly. However, this all changes when Ash explains that they're battling for the right to eat, a fact which fires up Ladybug immensely. Cackling that she is the perfect counter for a bug type like Ladybug, Lyra brings forth her Marill, and when the small aquatic mouse appears, she tells it to show off their super duper ultra secret uber powerful mega move. As it turns out, their super duper ultra secret uber powerful mega move is just Water Gun, which Ladybug easily avoids before countering with Attract on Ash's command. Unfortunately, as the Ring of Hearts circle Marill, they do not make impact with the water type just as they did against Voltorb, instead shooting away in all directions much to Ash's bafflement. From the sidelines, Bugsy points out that Attract only works on Pokemon of the opposite gender, so Marill must be female like Ash's Ladybug. Beaming, Lyra confirms this before adding that her Marill is also resistant to bug moves, so there's nothing Ladybug can do to hurt her. Knowing that this is probably true, Ash decides to recall Ladybug, asking Voltorb to take her place. With a cheerful nod, the orb rolls onto the field, though Lyra barely notices, too busy yelling at Ash that he shouldn't recall his Pokemon just because they're gonna lose. Instead, he should fight and lose like a man. It is perhaps because of this ranting that she doesn't notice Voltorb use Magical Leaf, until the flurry of Flora slam hard into her Maryl's rotund belly, sending it rolling backwards where it lays unconscious. This really puts Lyra in a bad mood, with her calling Ash an honorless swinub and challenging him to a duel for the sake of her honor. Clearing his throat, Bugsy points out that they're kinda already in the middle of a duel, and this prompts Lyra to at last recall her Marill and bring forth her final Pokemon, Chikorita. Having expected to receive one of the Johto starter trio as his partner when he started his own journey, Ash is already familiar with this Pokemon, and knowing that it and Voltorb will be equally ineffectual against each other, thanks his starter for his help, before telling it to come back and returning Ladybug to the field. Furiously, Lyra calls this more of Ash's dirty tricks, but Ash protests that she's just mad that her Marill lost, before sticking his tongue out at her. Lyra responds in kind, with both blowing louder raspberries at each other until Bugsy interjects once more, telling them both to get on with the battle. Ash decides to start this round off, and in spite of its recent failure, chooses Attract as Ladybug's opening move. Unfortunately, this works just as well against Chikorita as it did against Marill, causing Ash to cry that he wishes there was some way he could know a Pokemon's gender in advance. Showing a hint of his know-it-all streak, Bugsy does point out that some Pokemon do in fact have physical gender differences, though Chikorita isn't one of them. Grumbling that he doesn't see why Bugsy brought it up then, Ash returns to the attack, this time calling for Bug Bite. At once, Ladybug dive bombs Chikorita, but Lyra isn't ready to just roll over, and so calls for her starter to drive the incoming insect away with Razor Leaf. These hit true, but with Ladybug's quad resistance to grass moves, the Bug Flyer is unaffected as she begins to gnaw on Chikorita's leaf. Clearly finding such an action discomforting, the little grass type throws the greedy gourmand off, but now that Ladybug has a taste for the sweet leaf, she has no desire to give it up, swooping Chikorita once more and continuing to chow down. This time, Chikorita's refusal to be a snack is far more aggressive, as it dislodges Ladybug with a tackle, but just as before, the 5-star Pokemon is unrelenting in its pursuit of food, diving in once more, and this time dealing the knockout blow as it nibbles on one of Chikorita's neck bulbs. Howling in distress, Lyra returns her Pokemon, as Bugsy calls the match 2-0 in Ash's favor. Running in, Ash throws his arms around Ladybug, thanking her for everything as the Bug Flyer buzzes happily at being able to score this win for her trainer. From the doorway, the daycare couple commend Ash's bond with his Pokemon, telling him that they have prepared food for all of them, while also encouraging Lyra to buck up, since she did a good job in her first battle against a trainer. With surprise in his tone, Ash asks if this was really her first battle, and Lyra nods, her sorrow seemingly forgotten, as she tells him that though she lost this time, she will win next time, since she has decided that he is her arch rival, and it's her destiny to defeat him. Still getting used to this girl's flighty ways, Ash says he doesn't know anything about arch rivals or destiny, but he'll happily battle her again sometime. This is good enough for Lyra, who spins on her heels, heading inside while the boys follow behind her. After lunch, Ash and Bugsy prepare to get back on the road, but before they can leave, the daycare couple stop them, saying they have a favor they'd like to ask. Ash smiles that they'd be happy to help, earning him some side-eye from Bugsy at being dragooned into something without knowing what it is. But nonetheless, both boys listen as the couple explain their request. It seems that a while back, one of the Pokemon in their care laid an egg after spending a lot of time with a different kind of Pokemon, and they'd like for one of them to care for the egg and see what kind of Pokemon hatches from it. Ash eagerly volunteers for this job, and so is presented with an egg incubator by the old man, while the old woman registers her phone number in Bugsy's Pokegear, so he can contact them after the Pokemon hatches. From behind them, Lyra whines that she wants a Pokemon egg too, but with a hint of sternness, her grandmother reminds her that they did give her a Pokemon egg, which hatched into a Marill. Laughing a little, Lyra admits that oh yeah, they did do that, causing everyone else to laugh as well, and allowing this encounter to end on a high note. Now back on the road, Ash and Bugsy make good time, crossing large swaths of the route each day, and in just under a week, the silhouette of Goldenrod City comes into view. Unfortunately, all this walking has left our young duo footsore, and so a few miles out of Goldenrod, they spot a lake in which to soak their aching feet. Hiking up their pants, the boys take a seat on the bank, and sigh as the cool water takes away all their aches and pains. However, what can be taken away can also be dealt out, a fact Ash becomes acutely aware of of when a sharp pain jolts up his ankle. Leaping out of the water, our young hero looks down to find a Totodile's jaws clamped around his leg, and so with a pained cry, calls for someone to get it off of him. Ever the faithful friend, Voltorb comes rolling to its trainer's rescue, and fires off a thundershock in an attempt to dislodge the snappy reptile. This does manage to do the trick, stunning Totodile so that its jaws come loose, but unfortunately, since Ash is attached to the croc, he also takes a fair share of the damage, and crashes to the ground in a heap. Rolling over, Voltorb makes an apologetic noise, but Ash tells his partner it's fine, rubbing the orb's wooden head comfortingly with one hand, while he smooths down his frazzled hair with the other. However, this is interrupted when Totodile springs to its feet and rushes at Voltorb, clearly mad at being electrocuted. At first it attempts to clamp its jaws around him, just as it did with Ash, but this proves unsuccessful, and the only thing Totodile manages to do is get its mouth wedged open. This leaves it open to a magical leaf barrage down its gullet, which also serves the purpose of blasting Voltorb away from the big jaw Pokemon, but Totodile has guts, enduring the hit and following up with a scratch which actually seems to do some damage, just not enough, as Voltorb uses Thundershock once more, downing Totodile for real this time. Bugsy then goes over to inspect the dazed reptile, asking Ash what they should do with it, and leaping to his feet once more, Ash grins that he knows exactly what to do. He then pulls the lure ball his grandpa made him off his belt, declaring that he's always wanted a Totodile, before lobbing it at the downed creature. In its present state, Totodile puts up no resistance, and so in a flash of stars, the water-type starter is added to Ash's team. Perhaps due to fear of what other denizens may lurk in the deep, Ash and Bugsy decide not to return to the lake after this, instead continuing on their way to Goldenrod City and managing to arrive by nightfall. Ash is in awe of the big city, having never experienced such a thriving metropolis, and it takes Bugsy physically pulling him to get Ash into the Pokemon Center so they can heal their Pokemon and rest for the night. The next morning, Ash is up bright and early, clearly eager to explore Goldenrod City, and knowing what sort of trouble his old friend might get into without him, Bugsy agrees to play the role of tour guide. Together the boys visit the major landmarks of Goldenrod, from the bullet train station to the department store. But before they can make their way to Bugsy's next destination, the Goldenrod Gym, they are distracted by the sound of a girl shrieking. Running in to investigate, the boys find a pair of men in black clothes and hats harassing a girl, and so furiously bark at them to stop. Leering menacingly, the two men turn to face Ash and Bugsy, and when they do, Ash's breath catches in his throat. Emblazoned on their chests is the same pinkish-red R that he had seen under Tetsuya's vest during their encounter, meaning that in some way, they must be connected. This only gives Ash more reason to oppose these jerks, and so without hesitation, he calls for Voltorb to go get him, while Bugsy takes his cue from Ash and brings out his Scyther. Clearly not feeling up to the challenge of a fair fight, the two crooks bail, leaving Ash and Bugsy to rush over to the girl and ask if she's alright. Opening her eyes now that the danger has passed, the girl nods that she's fine, thanking them for coming to her rescue. Ash says it was nothing, while Bugsy asks what these goons wanted, and here the girl frowns, admitting that from what she could gather, the pair were Pokemon thieves from a group called Team Rocket. Looking worried, Ash asks if they stole any of her Pokemon, but the girl shakes her head, grinning they can't steal what she doesn't have, before explaining that she's not a trainer, she's just a student with dreams of one day becoming a Pokemon watcher, like the great Professor Oak. In fact, she was just about to head out on a Pokemon watching journey, but after that attack, she's a bit afraid to go out on her own. Giving her a friendly smile, Ash suggests that if she wants, she could always come with him and Bugsy, causing the girl's eyes to go wide as she gushes that would be totally amazing, since then she can see all the Pokemon she wants without having anything to fear. Not to mention she can watch all of their Pokemon, such as Ash's unique-looking Voltorb. Ash grins that this is the spirit, while Bugsy welcomes the girl to the group, saying that he looks forward to getting to know her, though perhaps they should start with a name, if they're going to be traveling companions. Giggling sheepishly, the girl apologizes for being so rude, then with a smile, introduces herself as Domino. Ash and Bugsy then introduce themselves, with Domino beaming that it's nice to meet them, though she has to admit that Bugsy is an odd name for such a pretty girl. This sends Bugsy into something of a depressive spiral, with the gym leader slumping to the ground and protesting that despite his cute appearance, he's actually a boy. Looking embarrassed, Domino apologizes for the confusion, but Ash laughs that it happens all the time, before hoisting Bugsy back to his feet and urging him to finish the tour. Shaking off his blues, Bugsy agrees, and so leads his now two companions to the gym. However, to their dismay, they are met by a close sign when they arrive. Pouting, Ash wonders aloud where the gym leader could be, but with a smile, Domino replies that she thinks she might have found a clue to their whereabouts. She then lifts the sign to reveal a small folded piece of paper stuck to the back with chewing gum. Looking impressed, Bugsy asks Domino how she managed to see that, but with a giggle, Domino replies that the first rule of Pokemon watching is to always be observant. She then unfolds the paper, and as it turns out, her hunch is correct, with a scrawled note being written upon it, which reads, "Gone to Radio Tower, be back tomorrow." Giving his friend a consoling look, Bugsy tells Ash that it looks like he'll have to postpone his gym battle for a day, but Ash will not hear it, instead declaring that he's going to the Radio Tower to convince the Goldenrod gym leader to battle him right now. Sighing that he should have guessed Ash would say that, Bugsy agrees to guide him, while Domino follows along, musing that it looks like they're already having adventures before they even leave the city. When they arrive, a crowd is formed outside the tower, and to Ash's surprise, he spots his favorite radio presenter, DJ Mary, at the heart of it. Rushing in to get a closer look, he manages to overhear the announcement the DJ is making, that she is giving away a special Pokegear equipped with a radio card to the first person who can answer her tricky trickster trivia question. This sets the crowd to murmur, with a young pink-haired girl in particular declaring that she just has to win that Pokegear. But soon, everyone stops talking as Mary reads out her question. What fruit was used to create the earliest Pokeballs? The silence that follows is deafening, until Ash, not even really thinking, replies that it's apricorns. This sets a look of shock on DJ Mary's face, as she declares that she didn't expect anyone to get it so easily, but yes, that is correct. She then calls Ash up so she can present him with his prize. A little starstruck at actually speaking to DJ Mary, Ash mumbles out his thanks, and after receiving his new Pokegear, returns to his friends while the crowd disperses. Sounding hopeful, Bugsy asks Ash if he had any luck finding the gym leader, but this hope is quickly extinguished when Ash's face makes it clear that he forgot all about the gym when he spotted DJ Mary. Sighing that he guesses they really will have to wait until tomorrow, Ash turns to leave until he feels a tap on his shoulder and turns around to see that pink-haired girl from earlier looking at him a little nervously. In a small voice, she asks if there's any way he would consider letting her trade him something for that Pokegear, since she really wants it. But Ash smiles that she can have it, since if he needs to call someone, he can just borrow Bugsy's. From behind Ash, Bugsy yelps they really need to have a talk about making promises for him without his permission, but this is drowned out by the squeal of joy the pink-haired girl is making, as she rips open the box and examines the new Pokegear. Grinning from ear to ear, she then thanks Ash profusely, saying this has made her day, and that if she's lucky, she might even have time to make it back to her gym before it gets too late. Eyes widening, Ash asks if this means she's the gym leader, and with a smile, the girl says she is, introducing herself as Whitney. Now it is Ash's turn to smile, and with excitement in his tone, he asks if there's any way Whitney would let him challenge her today. Chuckling that it's the least she can do after his act of generosity, Whitney bids Ash and his friends to follow, leading them back to the gym. In contrast to the forest domain of Bugsy's gym, Ash finds Whitney's to be rather plain, so much so that its normality could almost be considered a style of decor. In the center of the gym is a simple battlefield which Whitney tells Ash to join her on, while Bugsy and Domino head for the stands, taking Ash's egg and wishing him luck as they go. When she and Ash are in position, Whitney explains that this will be a 3v3 before bringing out her first Pokemon, a Nidorina. Knowing that the little poison type resists Voltorb and Ledyba, Ash chooses to open with his newly caught Totodile. With a flash of light, Totodile appears, eagerly dancing in place to express the joy which radiates from it like heat. Finding this excitement infectious, Ash asks if it's ready to win, to which the little croc nods, turning its eyes on Nidorina. Smiling that she won't let him win just because he did her a favor, Whitney invites Ash to take the first move, which the young man happily accepts, calling for a water gun. At once a torrent of water bursts from the starter's mouth, striking Nidorina head-on and sending it tumbling backwards. Pumping his fist, Ash tells Totodile to press the advantage and follow up with Bite, but unfortunately, it seems that Totodile doesn't hear him, too busy dancing for joy at this first success. This leaves it open for Nidorina to wage a counterattack, which in this case is Tackle. As Nidorina slams its head into the croc, a purple rash forms on the water-type's snout. Being quite familiar with poison as a bug-type specialist, Bugsy warns that Totodile's been poisoned, and this causes Ash to groan, recalling his Pokemon so that it won't have to suffer the poison's effects. In its place, he calls out Ledyba, knowing that Voltorb would not do well against a poison type, and so tells his bug Flyer that he's counting on her. Ledyba buzzes its readiness to help, and so on Ash's command, swoops down using Tackle. This hits hard against the poison pin Pokemon, and unlike with Totodile, Meanwhile, Ladybird is more than willing to capitalize on its advantage, doing a loop before tackling into Nidorina once more. This second tackle sends Whitney's Pokemon skyward, and when it crashes to the ground, it is unconscious. With a heavy sigh, Whitney recalls her poison type, and in its place she brings out her Miltank. The size of the Milk Cow Pokemon impresses Ash, but even still he feels confident, telling Ladybug the bigger they are, the harder they fall, before calling for a bug bite. Buzzing determinedly, Ladybug dive bombs Miltank, but with a smile, the gym leader tuts that Ash just fell into a trap, ordering a rollout. Lunging forward, the bulky cow spins in place, building up momentum before launching itself forward, and at such close range, there is nowhere Ladybug can run. Being quad weak to the rock move, Ladybug stands no chance, and as Miltank does the lap of the gym, the 5-star Pokemon collapses to the ground, clearly unable to battle. Ash's next Pokemon is Voltorb, and as the orb takes the field, Ash calls for a tackle, saying that it's time they prove once and for all who the superior roller is. As it turns out, Miltank is the superior roller, since when they clash, the smaller Voltorb is sent flying into the air. Urgently, Ash cries for his starter to use Thundershock, but in spite of its compromised position, Voltorb obeys, blasting at Miltank with electricity. However, to Ash and Voltorb's horror, this just seems to bounce off, with Whitney grinning that this is the power of Miltank's rollout, being a perfect offense and defense. It then strikes the falling Voltorb again, and with this being the third consecutive rollout, even Voltorb cannot handle it, crashing into the gym wall where it lies unconscious. Rushing over, Ash hugs his starter, thanking it for its great work, then bringing Totodile back out. Unfortunately for Ash, Totodile still seems pretty woozy from the poison, and in spite of its attempt at a happy dance, the vigor just isn't there. In an encouraging tone, Ash just tells Totodile to do its best, ordering a water gun so it doesn't have to get anywhere near the rolling Miltank. To its credit, Totodile puts its whole heart into this water gun, blasting Miltank, and continuing even as the poison causes pain to ripple through its body. However, even this isn't enough, as moments later a pink shape bursts through the water gun and bears down on Totodile. Terror in its cries, Totodile tries to run, but its little legs are no match for a speeding orb of death, and so in no time flat, it is pancaked under Miltank's rollout. Sadly, this proves too much for the spunky croc, and so with a cry, the referee declares the water type unable to battle, ending the match in Whitney's favor. And that's where we'll leave things. How will Ash respond to this loss that Whitney has dealt him? What mysterious Pokemon dwells in his egg? And why were those two Team Rocket grunts attacking Domino? Find out as the journey continues.